This episode of the Move Mind podcast was brought to you by CBD Mountain, the sport and fitness CBD. Head over to cbdmountain.com for a range of soft gels, skin balms, oils and vapes, and purchase online and have the premium quality CBD delivered directly to your door. cbdmountain.com. Thanks for tuning into the Move Mind podcast. My guest today is Simonster, world leader in calisthenics. He's an athlete himself and coach and physio. Simon, thanks so much for coming on the show, man. I appreciate you checking in all the way from Australia.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolute pleasure, mate. And I know it's a crazy time here and probably where you are too with the COVID madness. So what better time to kind of press pause and have a chat and unpack a few things. Yeah, so thank you so much. We're going to get stuck in there, Simon. Let's go back in time. Your journey into the movement realm, the calisthenics realm, the gymnastics world. Where does it start for you? Because I imagine you didn't start doing air flares straight off the bat.
No, I started with gymnastics when I was quite young. So my parents got me into gymnastics when I was about 10 years old. I used to always like watching action movies, stunt movies. I saw Jackie Chan walk in his hands, and that got me started in that sort of realm. So I used to always try and practice walking on my hands at home, and eventually my parents got me into gymnastics. I stayed doing that for about a year, and then at the same facility where I did gymnastics, some of the gymnastics teachers were teaching breakdancing. So I went along to a breakdancing class with a friend and just kind of swapped over from gymnastics to breakdancing quite early. So I was never really a high-level gymnast. I think I got to level 4 for people who know gymnastics. So it's pretty low level. And then once I moved over to breakdancing, I always was really interested in the spectacular moves, power moves, flips, the things that look impossible.
Yeah.
So those are the sort of things I pursued. And I found that when I would plateau on a skill, I always thought if I was a little bit stronger, I could maybe unlock this skill. And that's where the gymnastics strength training or the bodyweight training or calisthenics, whatever you want to call it, came in.
Okay, so that was the secret weapon to unlocking more of the b-boy stuff.
So I got an introduction to that. I got a taste of that through gymnastics. We used to do things like chin-ups and rope climbs and push-ups as part of the strength training.
Yeah.
And when I was training some power moves, I always thought if I was just a little bit stronger, I could probably do this move. If I make a small technical error, but I have the strength, I've got a little bit in reserve that can get me through it. I used that a lot as I was refining my technique with those sort of skills.
Yeah, solid. That's a smart approach. I like that idea. Have a bit of strength in the bank just in case, and then you can always later. Yeah, you got a bit of extra.
Exactly.
You can get away with a bit more, can't you? At least in the beginning.
Yeah, you can get away with a lot more. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Fantastic. Now, to me, gymnastics, Simon, seems pretty structured. Like you said there, level 4. There's structure to it. Whereas breakdancing has always struck me as quite a infinite landscape of possibilities, but B, quite ambiguous from an outside kind of perspective. I haven't immersed myself in it. How did you find navigating that landscape? I mean, you mentioned there some of the guys were teaching it from the gymnastics world, so I imagine that was a massive advantage.
Yeah. So the thing that drew me to breakdancing was always the spectacular moves. So power moves, tricks, hopping on one hand, spinning on your head, those sorts of things. I didn't really get drawn to it for the dance element. When I got into it, obviously they teach everything. I did a bit of everything, but my passion's always been in the, trying to push human limits and do the really athletic feats of breakdancing. The thing I love about it is the freedom. So with gymnastics, it's like, these are the skills that you're going to do. Here's your routine. This is what you have to practice. With breakdancing, it allows you to specialize a little bit more. You could just be a head spin specialist and train that for the rest of your life. So I really enjoyed that. It let me focus on the things that I enjoyed a lot more rather than spending more time on the things I didn't really care for. The other thing you mentioned was it's a bit ambiguous, especially to outsiders. So by that, I assume you mean when you watch a competition, you can sometimes be like, why did that guy win? Or what's that guy doing? And that's one thing I found really frustrating with breakdancing is I often watch competitions and I'd just be thinking, I just can't comprehend how that guy won the competition. And it's really subjective. I think there's a lot of politics in it. And that's one thing that kind of drew me away from the b-boying world or the breakdancing world to just pursue my own thing, just chase skills. There's no politics in that. Try to get stronger, try to better myself rather than being part of this breakdancing politics community.
Yeah, its own kind of culture, or weird, like, nuanced culture. I understand what you mean. So was it a zigzag approach then, from gymnastics, get a bit stronger, try a b-boy skill, alt plateau, back to gymnastics, and then kind of...
Not really. So once I stopped gymnastics, I kind of stopped gymnastics completely. But one thing that I held on to the whole time was just bodyweight strength training. Whether you call that gymnastics, calisthenics, bodyweight strength training, I always stuck at that because I found it helped my breakdancing a lot. So what I did zigzag back and forth a bit with was the b-boying culture and the community. So I used to go and enter competitions, and I used to train kind of all aspects of b-boying or breakdancing. And then I just found a lot of people in the community were, would spend so much time arguing about whether it's called b-boying or whether it's breakdancing or whether you're a real b-boy. And I just thought, this is a huge waste of time for me. I'm going to go and chase air flares.
Yeah, right. I mean, why not? Yeah, that's a studly move right there. No, I
thought you can have this you can have this philosophical debate for eternity about whether or not someone's a real b-boy and never really reach a conclusion, or you can
train,
learn to spin on your head. Or you can train. Exactly.
Or you can train. I think that happens a lot in a lot of worlds. Yeah, you get the I don't know whether it's nerdier approach, or people that maybe like to exercise their intellect a bit more, but they like the discussion. And then there's people that like to go and train, and there's always there's always those two kind of schools. So if you're not going to do the dancing route, then, that's interesting to me, because I always thought that b-boying you kind of had to. I thought that was the rite of passage.
You do kind of have to.
Do you?
Yeah, you definitely do kind of have to. So when I was competing, so if you watch videos of me when I was, 18, 15, and I'd enter more competitions, I used to dance a lot. So, generally when you're in a competition, you walk out, you do some dancing on your feet, you do some top rocking, you do some footwork, you do some power moves, you do some freezes. And I did everything, but my passion has always been in the athletic field of breakdancing.
Yeah, fantastic. Yeah, so I guess the normal pathway, it seems to me, from breaking is footwork, standing up, like you say, top rocking, up rocking stuff, then progressing, then footwork based stuff on the floor, and then once you get that, power moves start to, or like freezes as well, like you mentioned, and then the power moves is kind of like the elite,
the progression.
Yeah, that seems like the progression, right?
It doesn't really work like that. So having a good foundation of footwork can give you some skills that are transferable to power moves. Yeah. So a really good example, if you are familiar with these moves, are flares on the ground and the six step. Yeah. So with both of those skills, you stay facing one direction and you're kind of walking your body around and jumping over it with your hands. And learning the six step, your feet are on the ground, you get to get a feel of that movement of lifting your hands over your body, and then you can integrate it or transfer that skill to flares later on. But it's not that simple that you start with six steps and then you move on to flares. You could just do footwork in perpetuity, or you could chase flares without ever learning a six step. So I'm pretty sure almost every gymnast has never learned a six step. They just move straight onto flares. So it's not really a progression. You could use the analogy of MMA, striking and grappling. It's not like getting better at striking necessarily progresses into grappling. They're just two different realms. There's some transferability between the two, but it's not very significant. You can do one at a really high level and not do the other at all.
Yeah, it's fascinating. It seems to me then the strength element of gymnastics and perhaps the quirkier things like flips and hand balancing stuff would transfer far better to the power moves then, rather than wasting your time trying to learn how to step your left foot here and your right foot there. If you want to do, air flare,
exactly. If you want to do that, then that's an awesome thing to train, and people do that at a high level. But I always just wanted to do flips and tricks and spins.
Yeah, and so I'm interested, Simon, to get your breakdown on this, because it seems to me, all right, power moves. Let's take power moves. They're skills, but there's a strength element in there. Like, you don't just rock up and do it. There's a strength element too. Do you treat training, let's say, like an air flare, for example? Do you treat that as training a skill, or do you treat it as training like you would more like strength-based training? Like, how would you go about training something like that if you haven't got it in the bank yet?
I think you need to have some strength prerequisites.
Yeah.
But for an athlete, those are quite low for something like an air flare. And I would definitely group an air flare as a skill rather than a pure strength move.
Right.
So for most skills, you do have a strength component to it. Even if you take a really low level skill like shooting a basketball, that still involves some strength component. You need to be able to lift a basketball. It's just almost everyone can do that with ease. When you move on to more difficult skills like 90-degree push-ups, or take handstand push-ups for an example, that still does have a really high technical component. You need to be able to balance a handstand through range, but you also need to have a lot of strength to be able to press your body against gravity. So I think breakdancing, it's still very technical. It's still a high level of skill. There's just a little bit more strength involved. When it comes to power moves, because they're quite fast, they're quite spectacular, they're very dynamic, it might look like you need a lot more strength than you actually do. You need some level of strength. For example, for an air flare, you probably need to be able to hold a handstand. You need to be able to shift your weight onto one hand, but you don't need to be able to do anything like bench press 200 kilos or do handstand push-ups to do air flares at all.
Okay. Yeah. Interesting. Yeah. I suppose because there's a big momentum component too, right? So it's a lot about practicing air flares to be good at air flares.
Yeah.
Do that specific thing. Yeah.
And it's a skill that relies a lot more on biomechanics than it does on pure strength. So in an air flare, your arms don't really bend. You're not having to press anything. You're just keeping your arms straight, transferring your weight over your hand and jumping to the other side.
Yeah, it makes sense. You've built up quite a good catalogue of moves. You have one of the most impressive catalogue of moves, actually. You've got an arsenal of moves. Do you have to sacrifice training or maintenance to work on a new move? So if you're trying, let's say you hadn't got air flares yet, I was just like using them as an example. So I think they're a wicked move, and I know they're not elite as moves go.
You probably need to overlay a video for your listeners.
Oh yeah, the show notes, man, will be packed with links to some of to a lot of your moves and your videos. Yeah, for sure. But let's take the air flare again. You haven't got it yet, but you have the strength prerequisites. Do you then have to approach it on a 7-day cycle, let's say, throughout a week? You have to block out your training and just kind of focus on that and everything else falls to the wayside? Or do you have to try and maintain your kind of other stuff in the background and then say, right, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, I'm going to do air flares? Like, how do you kind of go about that? Because I find that stuff ambiguous. And a lot of people in the break world,
and it is.
Yeah.
And it is, yeah. So, so you'll probably have to relay an air flare video for the people who have no idea what the fuck we're talking about. But it is very ambiguous, and unfortunately, the answer is ambiguous, and there's not a one size fits all approach, like most things when it comes to physical training. So it really depends on a lot of factors. If you have got a skill down so well that you can not touch it for 10 years and come back to it and maintain it, then you don't need to spend any time maintaining that. Whereas if you've just got a skill that you can barely hold on to without training it for some time, you might need to do maintenance, a few days a week. So, for example, a skill as simple as riding a bike, I'm sure you and I both could not ride a bike for 20 years, get on a bike and be able to balance. For something like hand balancing, trying to balance on one hand, for me, that's a skill that if I don't practice that regularly, at least a couple of times a week, it disappears really quickly. So unfortunately, there's no set answer. It really depends on the skills that you're working. It depends on how well you've mastered the skills. It depends on how much you want to progress with the skill in mind that you're chasing.
Yeah.
So it depends on a lot of things. The way I like to approach it is progress is a beautiful thing. Rather than chasing the ghost of optimal, as long as you're progressing, that's great. Be happy with that. Then if you've got other skills that you want to maintain, just try those out a couple of times a week. If you're still maintaining them, great. Reduce that frequency. Once a week. Still maintaining it? Great. Once a fortnight? Great. Still maintaining it. If you start to lose the skill a little bit, increase the frequency to bring it back.
Right. Yeah. Frequency is what's going to bring it back into your arsenal again, isn't it? I've noticed that with the hand balancing world and my limited experience.
Yeah, and that will be different for everybody. So I might be able to maintain air flares, not training them, only doing them once every 3 months. Somebody who's just got air flares, they're not that consistent with them, haven't been doing them for 15 years, might need to do them weekly or twice a week to maintain them.
Yeah. Do you think there's a benchmark figure of how many hours worth or reps worth you have to put in before you keep something forever?
No, I think it's a lot.
A
But
lot, isn't it?
I don't
Yeah, it
think
is a
there's
lot.
I don't think there's a golden rule. I think that it's quite individual. There's variance between everybody. But yeah, a lot of people throw that 10,000 hours rule out there.
Yeah.
I'd just say a lot.
A lot, yeah. A lot of reps, a lot of blood, sweat, and tears contributed and sacrificed. Yeah, definitely. When you came over to Vancouver, you did a fantastic workshop here when you came over as part of your world tour. And I want to talk a little bit about the world tour and how you're going about that now that things have paused to a little bit later. But one of the big things, massive things actually, that helped me was your approach to programming for the strength-based kind of skills. For me, the big takeaway was handstand push-ups, learning how to bridge the gap from doing a handstand, arguably a technical skill, not too much strength involved, into the handstand push-up, a technical skill now with a big strength component. I didn't really understand the programming approach, and you broke that down really simply. I wonder if you could kind of, I know you did a nice 25-minute speech with the blackboard at our gym and kind of broke it down for us, and we don't need to go into that level of detail, but just roughly like your approach to programming strength components to technical skills, how you talked about like the reps roughly you want to hit over a week period, and like how you break it down and that kind of stuff. Because that was the biggest takeaway for me. And you know, I got handstand push-ups thanks to your programming, really.
Oh, great to hear. Yeah, so to take the skill of a handstand push-up, like you said, a high level of a high technical component and also quite a high strength component as well. So you need to be able to balance a handstand. You need to be able to maintain alignment and maintain balance as you descend and ascend against gravity. And you need to have the brute strength to just press your body weight overhead. So if you can't balance a handstand, it doesn't matter how strong you are, you can't do a handstand push-up. And if you can balance a handstand all day, but you don't have the strength to press your body weight, you're not going to be able to do a handstand push-up. So I like to separate those two, make sure that both of those components are addressed, and focus your time on the one that's limiting you. You see a lot of really strong guys who have done a lot of pressing, they've done a lot of bench press, overhead pressing in the gym. They have the strength to do a handstand push-up. They can balance a handstand, but they make lots of technical errors when they start to descend. As soon as they start to descend, you see their center of mass shift outside of their base of support, they fall over. And that's not something that they need to get stronger with. They think, I can balance a handstand, but you forget that maintaining balance as you descend and ascend is a skill in itself. Yeah. So if you need to work on the technical component of a skill, if your balance is a problem, I like to treat that like a skill. So the same way that you'd practice shooting a basketball, you'd practice drilling a jits move, you'd practice learning an instrument, it's lots of high quality repetitions with breaks to ensure that you're not fatigued. Right. You want optimal conditions to progress with a skill. So you don't want to be training a skill when you're really fatigued. So if that's the case for you, if you have quite a lot of strength and you're always failing in handstand push-up due to a technical error, do lots of singles or do lots of slow negatives where you can really refine your technique and you're staying far from failure. When it comes to building strength, you need adequate volume to build some muscle mass, and you do need to be going somewhat close to fatigue to get some metabolic fatigue in the muscles to make adaptations, to make them grow bigger. So for example, if you took your 10 RM and you only did 2 reps of it, you're staying so far from fatigue, it's probably not going to be that beneficial in terms of building strength and building muscle mass. Yeah. So when it comes to building strength, you've got a hypertrophy component. The more contractile tissue, the more muscle mass you have, the better. So to build that, you need to be doing challenging work and a lot of volume. And you've also got the neural component where you need to be able to fire your muscles efficiently, and you need to be practicing doing a high intensity move if you want to build your high intensity strength or your 1RMs. So I like to mix them up and do a little bit of high repetition work to help with hypertrophy, and a few singles and doubles to help with strength at a high intensity as well. Yeah. There's lots of, like we spoke about before, there's lots of different approaches you can use. So some people use There's lots of periodized approaches where you're manipulating variables peak. That works really well when you have an event to peak for. So for example, a powerlifting meet, you might do a linear periodized approach where you start with high volume, lower intensity, and you move to high intensity, low volume, which is more specific to the manner in which you're competing. The way that I really like to do to structure bodyweight training is we rarely actually compete. I think most people who do it are just kind of training in perpetuity, trying to get stronger. You're not trying to peak for an event or get, be really strong at this particular time. It's just, I generally want to work on my strength year round. A great way to do that is do most of your stuff in the kind of traditional hypertrophy repetition range. So you might be doing reps of, 6 to 12 with your exercises. And then in addition to that, when you're fresh, once or twice a week, throw in some really high intensity attempts. So you might try your max planche hold. You might try your heavy single handstand push-up to really hone in on that neural component. So that's something from, there's a exercise scientist named Greg Knuckles, who's also a powerlifter. That's something that I took from him and just kind of moved that to the calisthenics realm rather than traditional weight resistance training.
Yeah, fantastic. Yeah, I like that that approach of test days, a couple of test days in the 7-day cycle. Yeah, where you just give it a bash. I definitely did that with the handstand push-ups. I was started to build the strength on the wall, chest to wall, like you were suggesting there, using depth markers and gradually getting closer to the floor. Once I was able to get off the floor for sets and reps as prescribed, then I was like, you know what, I'm going to give a single a go, or a single negative a go, freestanding. I'm going to do that a couple of times in the week. And then, well, it wasn't actually, it was about 3 to 4 months, and then it started to get it, started to transfer that strength work that needed bringing up, blending it with the technical work, which I kind of already had in the handstand, and then it worked. Yeah, it paid off real nice.
You really do have to blend them as well, because intuitively a lot of people think, if I can balance a handstand and I can do 5 handstand push-ups on the wall, I can do freestanding handstand push-ups.
Yeah.
And some of the time that works, and a lot of the time it does, but quite often as well it doesn't work. You've got the strength, you've got the balance of a static handstand, but you haven't practiced the specific skill of balancing while you descend and while you push back against gravity. And that's something that you can practice and integrate those two, integrate strength and balance.
Yeah, agreed. It's very specific as well. It's fascinating just how specific that skill of strength in the descent and the ascent is. Yeah, it's part and parcel of the blessing and the curse, I think, of this kind of training, right? It's great, and it's also really annoying. It's that.
Yeah, it can be frustrating. Yeah,
very frustrating.
But I think the key to progress, or the path to progress, is quite simple. If you can break a skill down and train the outcome that you want as specifically as possible, the better. The best way to get good at something is practicing it specifically. Yeah. So if it's possible for you to do freestanding handstand push-ups or freestanding handstand push-up negatives, that's going to give you a lot more benefit if your goal is a freestanding handstand push-up than just doing reps against the wall. Right.
Yeah, because it's that much closer to the end goal.
To the actual skill, yeah. If you want to get good at deadlifting, deadlift. If you want to get good at squats, squat. You can certainly supplement that with other things. Deadlifting and squats will probably help each other. They share muscle groups. But to really get good at a skill, do it first and do that skill. Yeah.
Then your journey, Simon, on the handstand push-up side of things, once you started nailing that, which I imagine was probably a while ago now, what path did you take to progressing it? Where did you want to go? It's like, okay, you got a set of 10 handstand push-ups now. What did you take as the next kind of progression? Was it like 90-degree style, or was it going from planche pressing out into handstand?
Yeah, there's plenty. So after a handstand push-up, some really cool skills to chase are tiger bend handstand push-ups, where you move from the bottom of a handstand push-up onto your forearms and then back. 90-degree handstand push-ups, deep handstand push-ups where you descend below your hands. So rather than going to the level of your head, you can go quite low, and you can actually go really low. And then moving into kind of moving laterally to different skills like planche and planche push-ups, those sorts of things.
And when it comes to the calisthenic gymnastics side of things, a lot of comments I've heard over the years with dabbling in it myself is the stress on the joints, or the stress on the kind of tendons when you're doing. So a lot of these moves at the top end, they can be quite aggressive, and until you've built up the kind of capacity and the base for it. Is it just a case to manage that? It's the smart approach to training, progression over time, just doing little and often, as opposed to just battering yourself? Is that kind of a way to get around those sore joints and sore tendons?
Yeah, and I think you can be selective with which skills you with which skills you chase. So for example, skills like hollow backs are really stressful on your shoulders. You need to generate a lot of force, and that your shoulder muscles are being stretched significantly. They're painful. If you're looking for longevity and healthy shoulders and not getting sore shoulders, I would stay away from those. There's many other skills you can chase. But things like handstand push-ups, they shouldn't be any more stressful on your shoulders than an overhead press.
Right. Yeah. Agreed. Yeah, agreed. If you're technically sound, you should be fine.
Yeah, unfortunately, it's a little bit less intuitive of how to scale that than doing an overhead press, because an overhead press is simple. I get a barbell, I got stronger, add some weight to the barbell, add a bit more weight to the barbell. With a handstand push-up, it's not that simple. I can't just take my legs off and do half the intensity of a handstand push-up. But there are other ways to scale it, like doing pike push-ups with your feet elevated, wall handstand push-ups, and progressing in that manner.
Yeah, I think that's the one thing that you have to learn, isn't it, with the calisthenics game, is compared to the barbell resistance training game, what's the equivalent way of using leverage and physics in the calisthenics
exactly
to scale up your hierarchy? And once you kind of know the equivalent way of decreasing leverage or increasing leverage, depending what you're trying to do, it's a bit clearer pathway of where you got to go. Because I know you taught us a lot of, like, progressions and regressions, basically finding where you are on the spectrum of like today, and then using that as your starting point and kind of working through there. I like that breaks down and gets rid of the ambiguity for me. It makes it a bit more clear cut. Now,
a bit more systematic.
Yeah, far more systematic. Yeah. Now, I know you're a physio. Maybe lots of people don't know that, and you're trained as a physio, qualified, and you're also in practice as a physio. Studying to be a physio, did you find that it helped with your approach to, like, learning about training, or did you already have a good grasp of training before you went down the educational route of physio?
I had a reasonable grasp of training, but physio definitely helped. Physio helped a lot. So I still utilize a lot of the things that I learned when I teach workshops and in my calisthenics training and coaching. But the thing that I really appreciate physio for is it teaches you how to think. It teaches you how to appraise evidence, and it makes you a much more rational thinker when it comes to things like training.
Yeah, that's super important, isn't it? I mean, that sort of critical thinking approach, being able to look at something in front of you and being like, right, let's pick this apart. I can definitely see that would help, because one thing I like about your coaching and your teaching when you came over was how clear it was. It was just very clear to me. It doesn't just clear cut, it doesn't have to be that complicated, despite looking at something like a planche and being like, bloody hell, that's complex. It's like, actually, well, no, if you work back and break it down, it's clear. And I thought, in my mind, I was like, I wonder if that's because he's gone through physio, the educational route of being a physio, which has to be quite clear cut and systematic, because you have to be able to repeat a high level of practice, right, with patient after patient, year after year. There's a high quality control in physio, and I like how you kind of approach the calisthenics training with that clarity. Yeah, it makes a difference. So, Bodyweight, it's become famous again. Like, it goes through its phases, isn't it? The bodyweight training, I find that people are into it, not into it. And then calisthenics 3-4 years ago suddenly blew back onto the scene again, and became a thing.
Coronavirus.
Yeah, well, now this is it. Like, coronavirus is kind of put a lot of people on lockdown the world over, and now they're starting to re-experiment, or maybe experiment for the first time, with using bodyweight stuff.
Yeah, everyone's a forced calisthenic athlete now.
Exactly. Yeah, which is really interesting. So have you got any kind of like advice for people where they should be starting on their journey? I know it's a case by case basis depending on what their background is, but in general, if people are kind of interested in, oh yeah, calisthenics, gymnastic strength training, and you know, they've seen some of the craziness that you can do, where would you say they should be starting now in the comfort of their own homes? What are some of like the super basics they should try and get dialed in?
Yeah, so if you have access to a pull-up bar, things like pull-ups and chin-ups are awesome.
Yeah.
Those are great. Things like push-ups can be really good. The issue a lot of people have is everyone knows about chin-ups and push-ups, but a lot of really strong guys can do 50 push-ups and they just think, what am I doing? This isn't helping me build strength. It's not optimal for building muscle. I'm just training endurance. And it's about knowing how to change those exercises to make them challenging. So a great exercise you can do at home if you are really strong is a pseudo planche push-up, which is a planche push-up with your feet on the ground where you lean forward. So if you just take your standard push-up with your elbows by your sides, if you could do 20 of those, if you want to make it more challenging, just walk your feet forward, maintain straight body alignment, walk your shoulders in front of your hands. Now try your push-ups. It's a lot more challenging. It can be really difficult to know how to manipulate exercises to make them challenging with your body weight. I think a really good place to start is YouTube. So if you have a skill that you want to learn, you can find a planche tutorial on YouTube. You can find a one-arm chin-up tutorial on YouTube.
Yeah, and go down the wormhole there and just kind of
yeah,
and go for it. But don't underestimate, I guess, the basics of push up, pull up.
Or if you really want, get a coach. There's a lot of people who do online coaching who do calisthenics at a really high level, or who have a really good knowledge of how to progress with calisthenics and how to train people. So yeah, you can reach out to some people and try and look into coaching.
Yeah, I think that's a good shout. I think that will definitely help eliminate the bad habits early if they're a decent coach, right? There's a lot to be said to that. Are you predominantly self-taught? Mixture.
Yeah, a bit of a mixture. So I did breakdancing classes until I was about 14, where I was really learning from the coaches. At that stage, they kind of turned more into training partners than coaches. And since about 14, most of my progress has been self-taught or me troubleshooting with training partners rather than, a formal education in any training discipline.
Yeah, fair. Would you agree with the sentiment that a lot of these kind of skills and things that you've got in the bank, it boils down to how bad do you want it? How bad do you want to learn it? Yeah, and I find that in a lot of sporting endeavors anyway, actually in life in general. But if you've got the hunger for it and you've committed and made a decision mentally, like I did with handstand push-ups, I was like, right, sod this. I've been farting around with this for a couple of years. Enough of that. I got the pathway.
Yeah.
Let's have it. Yeah. You're likely to get it.
Definitely. Another way to frame that is just how much work ethic you have. I think the difference there is if you want it bad enough, it doesn't feel like work.
It's true.
It's enjoyable, and you'll put in the training hours a lot more easily than if you feel like it's a chore.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Is that something you've developed over the years, the work ethic, or is that just something that you've had? That kind of just.
That's something I definitely work on. It could definitely be better.
Wow, and that's coming from you, yeah. Yeah, fair enough. Yeah, I mean, the sky's the limit, I think, isn't it, when it comes to the work ethic approach? But ultimately, that's what's gonna get it. You're gonna get it if you're hungry for it and you want to go after it. How do you continue to maintain your kind of motivation and hunger to be better? Where does that come from for you?
Motivation comes in peaks and troughs, and you lose it sometimes. I usually just try to do some practice all the time. I try to train with people when possible. It's a little bit difficult now with the lockdown situation, but training partners are really good. That's probably my best bet. There's always things I used to get a lot of inspiration from were YouTube videos, and I used to see people doing things and try to emulate that and use that as inspiration, try to take my own little spin on skills that I saw. As I'm getting older, I'm doing less and less of that. Now my focus is a lot more on teaching, but I still enjoy training, trying to maintain my skills, I'm still always thinking about different approaches and trying to critique different exercises, thinking of the best way to approach learning a skill.
Yeah.
So I get a lot of motivation from that, but it changes. What I found is just trying not to rely on motivation, but just getting it done. Being disciplined rather than relying on motivation.
Yeah, agreed. Otherwise, you'll be put off by how much it does, like you say, peak and trough.
Yeah, because it always does. You'll go through periods where you're not motivated at all. If you're just riding motivation waves for your training, you'll go through periods where you won't train at all. You'll train once a week and you'll really plateau or regress. Whereas if you're disciplined, you just got to stick through it during those hard patches. Try to be disciplined, still do your training, and then when motivation comes, you can really use that to put in a little bit more effort and improve your quality of training.
Yeah, fantastic. Now, with the worldwide workshop tour, Simon, what's the deal? I mean, I imagine stuff has been paused and postponed because I know you.
Yeah, no workshops this year anymore.
No workshops for the entire year. Yeah.
Well, it's looking that way. It's hard to say, but I had some planned. I'm supposed to be in Bali this month, but that's not happening. And then I was going to do a tour in Europe and North America, but they're probably not going to happen.
Oh man, it sucks. Yeah, I guess. Well, they will in the future, I'm sure. Once everything kind of if everything goes back to normal, or once this whole madness stops. On your world travel, Simon, have you come across any cultures or countries or areas where they just have a strong bunch of people? They just get it. They get this idea of GST and calisthenics and they learn really well? Or is it just, it's kind of, you can't pinpoint anywhere and it's just random?
I was really impressed with China. A lot of really, really strong people in China.
Really?
Yeah. China would be the main standout for me.
Really?
I didn't expect to have, 6 or 7 people in my workshop doing full planche or full planche push-ups.
Wow.
I was thinking, why are you here?
Right. Yeah, you've got it. You've already figured it out.
Yeah.
Yeah, fair. And I suppose is it a worldwide tour that you've got? Yeah, so you mentioned that it's a worldwide tour that you've got coming up for the after the pause is done. In the interim, is there any like digital stuff that you've been doing, or I mean, everyone seems to be shifting towards the digital realm now?
What I'm just working on the same thing that I've been doing for a long time. So just making training programs and training guides online. So I've got a few like Project Planche, Project Handstand, Project Human Flag, which is quite a comprehensive look at the skill and the best way to train for that, along with a training program.
Oh, amazing.
I just finished the Human Flag one, so that one's pretty good. The Planche one is decent, but I think there's a lot of room for improvement. So I've just been updating that. I've done all the filming and now I'm putting together all the videos and hopefully get that up soon and give that to everyone who already purchased it.
Oh, fantastic. And then for everyone else that wants to purchase it, they'll get the new 2.0. Yeah, fantastic. And can people find that on your website and stuff? Is that they're available for?
Yeah, on my website. It's pretty straightforward in the training programs tab.
Yeah. Okay. Fantastic. Another thing that's just come to mind here is that is legs. And I know we talked about this briefly when you came over to Vancouver, but a lot of the power moves and GST stuff like that. It's not really leg dominant. You're not back squatting 5 times body weight. You're not deadlifting stuff. But do you train legs? And if so, what you have spring in your legs, I know, because you're getting your flips and your hang time. Do you train legs? And if so, what's your approach to legs? Because it doesn't seem to be such a common thing in people's minds. They just think, no, it's all upper body. That's all you need.
Yeah, and to be honest, with calisthenics, that pretty much is all you need. So most of the skills, you don't actually use your legs. And for most people who can do a planche, a pistol squat's a pretty low-level skill to do. It's not really big people that tend to be doing planche, and you can easily propel your body weight with your legs. So legs are a little bit more challenging to train with your body weight than your upper body. The reason being that your legs train body weight every day. You're walking, you're jumping, you're standing up from a chair, you're constantly lifting your body weight with legs. So they're relatively a lot stronger than your arms. The way I like to train legs is just really bread and butter traditional weight training exercises, weighted squats, weighted lunges, even machine things like hamstring curls.
Okay, and do you try and keep
Yeah.
hypertrophy to a lower level and just keep the strength
Not
high?
really. I don't bother. I don't think too much about it. If I was really trying to optimize my planche and my handstand, then yeah, I would try to keep my. I probably would just train legs less because there's not really an indication for it. But I like to keep some semblance of normality with my physique. Don't like the you skip leg day Instagram comments. So that's pretty much my motivation for, for training legs.
That's it.
Yeah.
Oh, you got the
And
pins out. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think it's cool to show people, like, even if you have normal size legs, you don't have to have chicken legs to do to do a planche or to do a handstand push up. I'm sure a lot of people are like, you're not the guy to be saying that because you do have chicken legs, but but yeah, you certainly don't need to have skinny legs to be able to do those skills.
Yeah, fair.
Yeah, so my training frequency with legs is, once or twice a week. I'll go to the gym. I'll do 4 or 5 sets of weighted squats and a few sets of lunges, and that's about it.
Yeah, nice. And that's enough then to keep you topped up. And I suppose when it comes to the spring side of like jumping and doing your flips and tumbling based stuff, you're getting your reps in for jumping, doing the actual skill itself. I would imagine it's not like you need to go and train to a bigger vertical jump, for example. You're getting that in the practice.
Yeah, and that's not something I'm really pursuing. I'm not trying to not trying to jump higher at this stage. I'm just trying to maintain what I've got.
Yeah, that's the future goals for Simonster, is it, for spring and summer this year? It's just maintain, and I guess we're all kind of more teaching.
Yeah, even if that's online, making high quality guides and tutorials.
Yeah. Are you self-taught in the coaching realm as well when it comes to teaching? Is that just something you've picked up as you've shared your skills with people over the years, or have you looked to any specific learning there when it comes to coaching? Because again, like I said, you're very clear when you coach. There's no room for bullshit. It's just it's quite to the point, and it's just clear, easy to understand.
Yeah, I've never had any formal coaching about coaching. It's just something that I've tried to just emulate the coaches that I've really appreciated over the years, whether that's been, gymnastics, breakdancing, jiu-jitsu, physiotherapy.
Yeah, it's fair. Now, there's one jiu-jitsu coach that I know is a friend of yours and that you've learned under, and have dabbled in yourself, Mr. Lachlan Giles. Shout out to him who he's watching. And I know he's probably
a legend.
Legend, absolute legend. How do you know him?
I went to high school with him. So he was a few years above me in high school. We had a mutual friend. So that's how I met Lockie. And then he studied physiotherapy a few years before me at the same university. So I did physiotherapy, and I'd see him on campus every now and then and say hi. And one day I went along and tried out a jiu-jitsu class. I think back when he was a purple belt and he was coaching.
Wow, amazing!
Yeah,
and you went back, I imagine.
Yeah, I stayed in jiu-jitsu for a couple of years. Got quite injured, which is why I stopped. And I kind of had to choose: do I want to keep doing jits, or do I want to do, continue to progress with my bodyweight stuff as much as I can? And I chose that.
Yeah, that's fair. I think everyone goes through the injury journey in the jits world at some point, and I do think a lot of it can be mitigated with decent training, supplementary to map time. And
agreed. But it inherently is a very dangerous.
Right, you're training how to break people, aren't you? Basically, you're learning how to break people. So it's understandable that breakings will happen in your.
And when you look at a lot of jiu-jitsu injuries, I hear a lot of people say things like, "Oh, just tap early, you'll be fine. It's it's so gentle." But if you look at a lot of jiu-jitsu injuries, they're not due to people, trying to. It's not an ego thing. It's not people there saying, "I can hold this submission." It's someone moved a little bit funny, leg got trapped underneath you, and like Lockie tore his LCL. I think Gordon Ryan tore his LCL, the same thing. It's not submissions. It's just
happenings.
It's just the nature of the art.
Yeah, it would seem that it's similar to breakdancing in the sense of it's such a wild spectrum of moves. It's an infinite spectrum.
It's just such a vast landscape. But the thing that breakdancing has in its favor there with regards to injury is that you're in total control. So if I don't feel comfortable doing something with breakdancing and I think, oh, this is a bit risky, I don't have to do it. Whereas when it comes to jiu-jitsu, somebody puts you in that position and you're kind of forced there.
Yeah, agreed. You've got this other person component, which changes everything, actually, really, doesn't it? Once you're not the only controller, now you've got another person to deal with. Actually, yeah, it changes the entire landscape. Not only does it multiply the number of possibility of movements exponentially, but it also increases risk to...
Yeah, of course. That's just inherent in what jiu-jitsu is, unfortunately.
And do you think jits athletes would benefit from doing like quite a vast amount of calisthenic gymnastic based work supplementary to their mat time?
I think a little bit.
Yeah.
I don't think it would make a night and day difference.
No.
Yeah, but I think most people who do jits are really good at moving their bodies anyway.
Yes.
You know, you do things like hip escapes in your warm up. Those are the things where you really need to have good body control, and the best way to do that is by doing jits, not by doing body weight. Some areas where it can help a lot, I find grip strength helps a lot.
Yeah.
So things like wrist control, and especially pulling strength. So if you're really good at chin-ups, you're really good at front levers, that can go a long way.
Yeah, agreed. And I know there's the Gio and Richie. The
B-boys.
Yeah, break dancers, right? The break dancers as their prerequisite to jiu-jitsu was breakdancing. Martinez brothers. And interesting that their crossover into jits was somewhat seamless. And my theory is that you've got more experience than me, that breakdancing was such a vast landscape of moves as well. The way their brain works into like proprioceptively and understanding where their body is in space and learning these new skills was very similar to just doing it on another person.
Yeah, I think it does have some transferability in that you're really good at moving your body. But there's definitely easier ways to learn that than doing breakdancing. Agreed. So I think in his case, it's probably a case of this guy's just great at moving his body. He would have been awesome if he did jiu-jitsu, if he did breakdancing, or if he did, hip hop or some other, striking, whatever he did.
Whatever they touched, they would have been decent at it, right? Because there's a natural degree of talent in there.
Arguably. I think athletes are pretty good at learning what works best for them. So I always hear people say to me things like, just imagine how good Lockie would be if he did calisthenics, or how good he'd be, how much better his jits would be if he did calisthenics. And I think probably wouldn't. He'd probably be worse, because he would have spent some of his time wasting time training calisthenics instead of getting better at the thing that he does.
Yeah, agreed. I had a chat with Jeffrey Chu a couple of episodes ago, who's a strength and conditioning and performance coach for strikers, and getting into grapplers as well in the kickboxing world. And we were talking about this. It was like, what's the role of strength and conditioning based practices for combat athletes? And his kind of thing is, what the reason we do S&C ultimately is to keep the athlete healthy enough so that they can get on the mats and get better at what they need to do on the mats. That's the primary goal. It's not to get them better at squatting. It's not to get them, better at
exactly
planche push-ups. It's to get them healthy enough.
Combat sports.
Exactly,
their discipline is combat sports. That's what they're trying to get better at. So this is to supplement that, not the other way around.
Yeah, agreed. And arguably, once you get into something very skill heavy like breakdancing or some of the more like the power move side of things, you're then going to be detracting away from your mat time if you spend more time trying to learn those technically heavy skills, right? They're not going to cross over and make you better at jits. In fact, lots of people say when it comes to the combat sports world, especially for grappling, like having a general level of strength is one of the best things you can be doing to improve your jiu-jitsu, not being specific and trying to do all these crazy vectors and loaded movements. It's just be strong at hinging, and pulling, and more general kind of just qualities. I think that's fair, especially for something as open as jiu-jitsu, where you have so many different scenarios that can play out. You might need to pull in this direction, in that direction. It's not like calisthenics where you can set your body in a perfect position and that's what you need to get strong at.
You need to be strong in so many different planes with so many different movements.
Yeah, yeah, agreed. Midsection work, just picking your brains here, Simon, on like the midsection side of things. Do you treat midsection work as kind of like an accessory, like in the traditional strength and conditioning sense? You kind of do your neurologically demanding stuff at the top, and then you kind of work down a little bit less demanding, and then maybe, you know, you finish up with something like midsection work, bracing mechanics, stuff like that. Is that something that you need to train alongside of these skills for gymnastic strength training, or do you get that stimulus just from training the skill itself?
Yeah, so I'm often asked about that with calisthenics. So what do you do for core? That, you know, I'm looking at this program and you've got front levers and back levers and handstand push-ups, but there's nothing for core. And so I do very little direct core work in my own training. If you break those skills down though, holding a front lever is extremely demanding on your core. Holding a back lever is extremely demanding on your core. You need to have the strength to do a reverse hyper to do a back lever. You need to be able to perform a full dragon flag to hold a front lever. So I treat core, I'll train core as an accessory movement if it's indicated. So for example, if you're really struggling to lift your legs up in a planche, you're trying to move from a tuck planche to a straddle planche, or a closed hip straddle to an open hip straddle, and you're finding the difficulty is due to extending the hips rather than anything that's happening at the shoulders, then I would do some specific core work to help address that impairment. So for example, train reverse hypers, build some strength in the back extensors and the glutes, so that I can fulfill that demand in the planche. The same thing with the front lever. If I'm holding a front lever, my body's bowed and I'm just having a really hard time maintaining a straight body. And it's not because my shoulders are weak. I feel really comfortable at the shoulders. It's just my abs are struggling and I can't maintain a straight body. That's when I would train things like dragon flags and the regressions, try and build strength there. But I think core is something that gets addressed so heavily during calisthenics.
Yeah.
That you don't really need to do any specific work for it as an advanced athlete unless there's an impairment you need to address. As a beginner, I think things like hollow body holds go a really long way, just in terms of motor control and building strength for some of the moves. But as you start integrating things like front and back lever, you're really getting enough core training on its own that you shouldn't need to do anything extra unless you see an impairment.
Yeah. So would you say then the moves almost themselves act like a diagnostic to discover impairments? The impairments themselves in the progression almost.
Yeah. So here's an example. Unfortunately, like most things in life, it's not so black and white, and it's often hard to determine exactly what the cause of something is. So a good example is a back lever. You see people do a back lever, and one of the most common things that I see in a back lever is somebody arching their back. So you can hold a tuck back lever fine. They try to progress to a full back lever, and you just see their back banana and arch. And most people immediately jump to core. Oh, your back is arching, your core's too weak. You need to train core. But that's not necessarily the cause of that. So you could have a poor back lever, or you could have an arched back lever because of weakness in the shoulders. You've got the strength to fight against the lever arm in a straddle back lever. The second you bring your legs together, your shoulders aren't strong enough. What that would look like if you had a perfect core is your body would just fail while maintaining perfect alignment, and you wouldn't be able to hold that horizontal posture. The reason you're bananaing in that case is to reduce the lever arm and reduce the demand that's on the shoulders. It's not due to an inherent core weakness. It's just most people, the primary goal is hold the skill. I'm failing, how can I hold the skill? And your body will just kind of do what it has to hold it, and that might be arching the back. Another reason for that is that you could just have a weak core. If you feel that your shoulders are fine, you're not having any difficulty in your shoulders, it could just be a core weakness, and you're compensating by arching a little bit further to make it easier on your lower back and your glutes. The other reason, it could be you've got great strength, you've got awesome core strength, it's just motor control. You think you're in a straight line, but you're not. You watch it back and you find you're arched. You try it again, you find you're piked. That's when you need to film it and really train that skill of getting a straight line. So there can be a lot of causes that influence why you have an arched back in your lever. And it can be hard to differentiate exactly what the cause is. Unfortunately, it rarely presents like that, where you see somebody who's just like, I'm in a perfect straight line. I'm just descending a little bit too slowly towards vertical. I need stronger shoulders. And often it can be a mix of those things as well. So it's about troubleshooting. Subjective things will help you determine it as well. Where are you feeling that you fail, in the shoulders or in the core?
Right. Yeah, I guess like you said there, camera is bloody useful, right? It's a
and you can get clues with so you can look at it, think about what the specific impairments that could cause this are. So like the 3 I just listed, and then you can do some more specific testing to work out exactly what the cause is in this individual. So for example, you see an arched back in your back lever. You think it could be core, check out their reverse hyper. They're doing reverse hypers with ankle weights, 10 repetitions, perfect. Okay, it's probably not your core.
Yeah, and you can just boil it down. Yeah, exactly. It'll be more shoulder based, something like that. Yeah. No, I like that approach. I think it's 100%. You get a lot of stimulus from your midsection doing these progressions. Anyway, you just go and tell someone who's never done a tuck planche hold to go and do it, and tell me their abs aren't screaming after, And arguably, I think one of the most important skills, Simon, maybe you can attest to this, is if we're looking at benchmarks of the average human, I think everyone should be able to radiate tension from head to toe, being able to hold themselves into some variation of a straight line, whether it's a handstand, whether it's some sort of lever. I guess a plank is an even simpler form of that. But radiating tension from head to toe, it seems like it's just bloody useful. It's such a good skill, such a good motor control, body control kind of skill to have. And the beauty of the calisthenics and the gymnastics world is that that carries through. You've got to be able to hold tension head to toe when you're doing all of these advanced moves. It starts there basically at least for the lever work and kind of straight body based stuff. But it seems to be such a good skill. I encourage everyone that I meet and work with is that you've got to learn how to brace from head to toe, regardless. I just think it's a good thing to have in the bank. Simon, we've done a good hour here. I hope people got some good nuggets. If the people want to find more, like people are itching to get some training and content now, like you say, everyone's forced to train calisthenics now, whether they like it or not. So where can people find more about your programs and your Instagram and stuff like that? And if they want to get in touch, how can they do that?
Yeah, I think my website's the best bet for that. So simonsterstrength.com. If you want some free tutorials, I've posted quite a few on YouTube. And then I post tips pretty regularly on Instagram.
Yeah, everyone should.
They're all Simonster Strength. So simonsterstrength.com, Simonster Strength on YouTube, Simonster Strength on Instagram.
Fantastic. I'll make sure that's in the show notes then. So there's some links there. People can get on it. Everyone should be following you on Instagram if they're not already, because it's just wicked. All the crazy skills that you put up all the time. I love it. And then the coaching nuggets that you drop in there too. I've even benefited a lot in my handstand push-up journey from the accessory stuff you've talked about. I remember you posted one with a plate and how it follows the same kind of vector that you want for pressing, and just little things like that. So useful for people on their journey. Simon, thanks for jumping on, man. I'll have to get you on again soon. I know we can go deeper down the wormhole of training-based stuff. Let's hope this COVID ban clears up soon and you can get back on that world tour.
Yeah, I'll come see you in BC.
Yeah, 100%. All right, brother. Thank you so much.
Nice to talk to you. Take care.
This episode of the Move Mind podcast was brought to you by CBD Mountain, the sport and fitness CBD. Head over to cbdmountain.com for a range of soft gels, skin balms, oils and vapes, and purchase online and have the premium quality CBD delivered directly to your door. cbdmountain.com.